First, thanks very much for inviting me, Chris. I think I'm very privileged to be here. So what I'm going to do is focus very much on the disruptive innovation. And I'll explain why we need it. We'll try and help you to go beyond conventional thinking, how to pursue and implement it within your organizations. What I'm going to show you, hopefully you can even take it away and start implementing it back in the office on Monday or in your organization. So hopefully there's some takeaways and show you that it is actually quite simple, or can be. I will show a number of specific examples that I actually did in my time with Shell GameChanger, where I personally found the ideas, all with open innovation. And I realized, once we were with Shell, when open innovation became a bit of a buzzword a few years ago. Shell GameChanger was started 20 years ago and actually had been pursuing open innovation all along without it being called anything. So my ideas were generally out there scouting, looking for the ideas and nurturing these people out with Shell and letting them prove the ideas with a number of rags to riches stories and to show that it can be done. It's a lot of fun, and it can be pretty straightforward. And then I will end off as well, and I want to say it's quite low risk, but I'll address that. And finally, I'll end off with a recent example that's now working with Ruggier. Okay, so now I'm going to teach you basically how to raise hell and change the world. So as we've heard, and even Chris said this afternoon, we want to try and solve some of what you said is the global real challenges. These are the ones, I'm sure you know the figures, have seen them many times. By just 2030, we'll need 50% more energy, 40% more water, and even 35% more food. I know these sort of figures have been bounced around all the time, constantly. But my question is, well, what are we actually doing about it? I think we're all complacent. We think innovation, like in the past, the Industrial Revolution, the Internet, etc., it's somehow always got us out of the mess or the situations. But we've been talking about this for some time. And if you ask yourself, what has really happened? What radical innovation have we really happened and helped us, or will help in any of these areas in the last decade, 2 decades, 3 decades? Really, if you think about what's really happened on the energy side, fundamental. Same with the water and even on the food. But I'm sure people in this room are much more experienced in the food area than I am. But so that's where I think we really do need radical innovation, which I'm going to show now. This is one of my favorite quotes, and I'll just read it. It's by Buckminster Fuller and John Brewer sitting in the audience, and you heard him on the first day talk about the aponic system. John was Buckminster Fuller's he was his mentor, looking after him and coaching him, and that's how he told him to come up with the aponics. What's a radical solution? So we're very privileged to have, I think, John with us. And what Bucky said is the fastest way to change something is not to fight it, but to design a new way of doing things that makes the old way obsolete. So do you see, it's almost a clean sheet of paper, come up with something radical and different. So don't try and compete with what's out there. So you'll see examples of that. I think you all must know the classic innovation challenge, where you over time, everything gets better, whether it's a horse and cart to the latest car, or you can see from the old camera up to the single lens reflex camera. So over time you improve. Some people even call it incremental innovation. I hate that word. It's either innovative or it's not. This incremental is an excuse. You're not really doing innovation. That to me is just part and parcel of survival. If you don't do that, you're not going to survive. So it isn't really innovation. Innovation to me, anyway, even if it's not radical, but stepping out of the box, being courageous, and being innovative. So the dilemma. Is there a pointer here, by the way? Let's see. Yeah, brilliant. Now, the point is, it's quite easy to do that. When you want to do this more innovation, or especially if it's more on the radical or different innovation, you've got to be in a space where you're not actually delivering. It's not as good as what's out there. But that's where management needs to have patience, have faith, and let the people, to work in that space. And hopefully then you just leave the rest standing, and then you'll be surviving. Whereas with Kodak, Obviously we know what's happened. But the worst part about it, Kodak actually invented the first digital camera. Not many people know that. But then it went to the boardroom, and okay, it may have taken 23 seconds, and it weighed 8 pounds to take a digital photo, but they had it. They were the world leaders. But they went to the board, senior management said, you know what, stop wasting your time. They pulled the plug, you can't do it. And they didn't know they were pulling the plug to really the main outfit. So you see that they were really there, but they didn't have the faith and the confidence just to sit it out a bit longer and leave them alone. So they missed the boat. So we know what sort of happened to Kodak. Now, this is again, as I mentioned already, the different sort of innovations, sustaining, incremental, next generation. So this is really what I'm talking about, the breakthrough, disruptive, transformational. Everyone sort of shies away from that. Venture capitalists don't even want to hear that word, or anyone. But really, I think we need it, and I think it absolutely pays and is low risk, as I hopefully will explain. Now, this is a very interesting curve, some curves. Global R&D spend trends. These are from the top 1,000 companies. And you can see, so this is the incremental innovation. Over just 10 years period, which is not a lot when you're doing your 10 5-year plans, you can see the top companies see incremental innovation spend from almost 60% down to just over 40%. So it's a big reduction. Likewise, the new substantial innovation, still better than the past, going from maybe just over 25% to maybe 35%, so more of that. And particularly interesting is the breakthrough from just over 10% to just over 20%, so almost a doubling in spend in breakthrough innovations, and in just 10 years. So that's sort of the leading companies can see you really need to be that business. Likewise with this curve, and this is from the average, above average performers compared to the company average. They are spending 23% on the transformational projects. That's 25% of their R&D budget. And it's probably not just a chance that the above average performers are spending that compared to, say, 9%. So really, I think you can see the successful companies are more in that space. And when I'm sometimes at conference talking, you see companies are, for example, manufacturing locomotives, trains, and then they say China are now producing them at half price, half the cost from them. So I say, well, you should spend 100% of your R&D budget on radical, that's just my view, but radical innovation, because if you're just doing incremental whatever, you're never going to compete and you will be out of business, just a question of time. So you see, it depends on your organization, where you are, how much you should spend on that, and how you allocate between the various types. And I do think you should have a cross-section, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying you should do all your R&D in that side, but you just need a percentage, and you should ask yourself, as an organization, where do we want to be, where do we want to get there, and how much we spend of our R&D budget. That's the same sort of thing, 10 years, 40% of Fortune 500 won't exist, which is quite phenomenal. And this is my favorite slide. The other one was my second favorite. Birds born in a cage think flying is an illness. And I want to say I'm going to just say a few words. It's Angela here. Angela Carr? You're talking, oh, there you are, right back there in the lights. Just from what you said before the dinner last night, I really love that. And I could remind this, and unfortunately I'd already given my presentation slides in, but I'm now going to talk about Shell GameChanger. And the first slide was lovely. It had ingenuity as an individual. And GameChanger basically gave individuals space. They took the barriers or whatever, they gave space or gave freedom. That was the whole basis of what I'm going to tell you about now, Shell GameChanger. Because as you probably know, when you go to school, you're there, you've got to sit in the classroom, you can't talk, and it's very like that. Then you go to university, it's even worse. And then you join a corporate, and oh gosh, now you've absolutely got to conform. When I started Shell, you had to wear the grey flannels, and you had to wear the white shirt and the blue blazer, or whatever, and it's just ridiculous. But then you have, HSE coming, procedures, processes, and you really squeeze in that box, and you can hardly move, you're scared to get out. So it really was to give space, let that ingenuity come out after being squashed all the time. So that's what I think this quote is so good. You're all there. So think of yourselves and your organization. Am I in there in the cage like everyone else? What if I fly? You know, am I going to be just an outcast? Am I going to be the first to be fired when the next round of redundancy comes or whatever? So I think that a lot is said there. So, what is a game changer? Basically what it is, it's when you are in a particular space here and you're doing your R&D and you're getting good results, but then generally it tails off. Like how small can an iPhone go? Now they're even going bigger, which is quite funny, but you get everything smaller. So there's only so much you can do, and you put a lot of R&D into that for that little incremental difference. So what I'm saying here now, if you could step back a little, and just work out, like the example I showed you with Kodak or whatever, if you could work on something different, yes, give it time, space, and then hopefully it jumps up to a completely different level, and it leaves the old stuff absolutely standing. Now, what is so fundamental now, and to show the pace, is Shell GameChanger. When I show you the next slide, there were just 10 of us. It's been going 20 years, and it wouldn't be going that long if it didn't give the results. $20 million a year is given to just 10 individuals. So you say, woo, you can have a lot of fun, and you can. But 5 in Houston, 5 in the Netherlands, from that money. And the R&D people hated us in a way, because we got 10% of the total global R&D spend, and it was just the 10 of us compared to R&D. But what actually paid, do you realize, from GameChanger, as I said, 10 individuals, as a result of what we delivered, 40% of what Shell core R&D spent their time on came from Shell GameChanger. So if you think about it, if there wasn't that GameChanger department feeding the novel radical stuff, the core Shell R&D would have just been working on that same old stuff, perfecting a bit of this. But you give them whole different areas to work on. So 40% as a result of GameChanger is, and that possibly Shell claim that they're the most innovative oil company or energy company or oil and gas company in the world, and I think they are. And mainly it could be because of Shell GameChanger and that attitude to be ahead. So now I'm going to give you some examples which I really love. The America's Cup. You all know that, it's been going on since, 1851, and you can see the average speed of it was just 10 knots. And then, look at that, 50, so my maths, 80 years later, they actually went up just 2 knots. In 80 years, the average speed was 2 knots later. And then, now at 58, 30, so in 30 years, we went another 2 knots. So, you know, look at the time scales. And then 1988, 20 knots. Okay, at least it's a nice jump, 6 knots in however time, 30 years. And then in 2007, now it's doing quite well, 25 knots was the average. So now let me ask you, anyone want to just shout out, just 8 years, so from 2007 to 15, 6 years or whatever, what do you think was the average speed in 2015? Just shout it out. 35? 40? Any others? Higher than 40 or lower than 40? Well, look at this. 50. Jumped to 50 knots in just that short space of time, from 2007 to 2015. So the point I want to make here, you can continue spending time on your R&D, when we go back a slide, you know, trying to perfect a better hull shape. All the effort which went onto coatings of that hull to get that slight bit of, you know, less friction and looking biomimicry, and the amount of effort. So basically, if you just step back, come up with, you know, a completely different system, then basically your coating of your hull is absolutely irrelevant. Your shape of your hull is pretty well irrelevant. So do you see, by coming up with something different, all the problems and challenges you may be looking and the nitty-gritty are absolutely irrelevant, and that's where you want. So just to jump into something, no one would have expected that. And what's it going to be in the future? So it's just a good example to say this shows the jump. Okay, at what rate will change? Again, just generally you can see patterns, it's just absolutely exponential. If you can't read the figures, this is 1995, 2000, 2010. It's the same with mergers and acquisitions, the trends like that, and the same with sort of global mobile data. We know that it's sort of every sort of year or so doubles, and the speed and everything. So really, it is a fast-moving pace. So what's really happened, say, in the agricultural area, agri-tech, are we really playing at this sort of radical thing, looking ahead, and really, and going back to my earlier slide, we've got a massive challenge ahead. People are going to starve. I mean, just what's happened, I think if you read the news, I saw just BBC last night, I couldn't sleep, I was just sort of Googling a bit. The news, courgettes in London have gone per tray, literally in the last 2 days, 48 hours, from £8 or £6 a tray to £22 a tray. They've gone up threefold, like spinach. Why? Just because of the cold weather, the sort of rain in Italy and Spain. So look, we're really at a bit of a knife edge on food. The problem just there, and it affects us. They can't even get it in restaurants. So, and the same what's happening with droughts, and even I'm told Iraq. I saw Al Gore talk just maybe a couple of months ago, and he said, no, Syria, sorry. Just the number of people who went into the cities before the civil war was because their whole agricultural, what they could actually produce as a country, went drastically down for droughts. But people don't know that. So I'm just saying we really do need the radical innovation. Now, I'm just looking at time. I'm going to be very quick. You can ask questions. It's a very simple process. The GameChanger model, I can go into it, but the big one there, it's just run by the few people, no hierarchy or whatever. Item 3, to invest in people and their revolutionary ideas. So that, I believe, is open innovation. You go there, you nurture them, it's their idea, help them, and go out with Shell. Well, I did. Others focused on Shell and GameChangers, but they're all out there. All the ideas are out there to solve everything. I honestly believe that. They just need to be found. People need to have the balls and the courage to invest, give seed funding, and let them go for it. I think that's, I've said everything. Yeah, we generally gave seed funding to prove the concept, so right at the beginning. And that's where you need the money investment. That's what's so difficult to get these days. And then you help with take up and the joint ventures, however you want to do it. I'm showing this slide. It's so quick. GameChanger. I'm just looking at time. You've got a screening panel. You just need 2 GameChangers there. Over a coffee, you can give £15,000 to £20,000. Okay, that's internally, or dollars. If it's external, they've still got to follow the process. You don't actually give them money, but that's to get them to the next step. But Shell people can come. You immediately give them a time writing code. They can jump on a flight to a conference, and you're giving them space, time, resources. That's immediate. Likewise then, a main extended panel, you need only 3 GameChangers, that's it. And you don't want many more, it's a waste of resources. You do have experts there, you do have potential end users, they give their opinion, and then even they leave the room, and the GameChangers decide to fund. And you, again, can give immediate money and funding to them. And that could start at 20,000, that's why I think risk is low. You give them a toll gate, but at the end, we were sort of giving you hundreds of thousands, and in the end, for one, I've mentioned Tide Power Solutions, it was sort of 2 million in the end, but it's stepwise. But you can just give it, they can immediately go. You get the money at the beginning. I must say, the accountants hated us, because they give it, here's a check, you're 20 million at the beginning of the year, and then they say, what are you going to get for that? And you go, well, I don't know. So anyway, so it is simple. And I want to say, these 2 slides, that previous one and this, are the procedures. Normally Shell have all these procedures all over, but that is it, it's 2 slides. There are no procedures, this is it, basically. And this one is the GameChanger criteria. You want potential, potential value. To me, it's got to be big, really, substantial. I'm not looking for, 10, 20, 30% increases. I would always do 10, 20, 30 times better than anything else. Like John mentioned on the first day, like if you're creating fog, his system, using a printhead to create the fog, an inkjet printer compared to conventional fog generating, was 91 times better than something else. Not 91%, but 91 times less energy than the next equivalent. A novelty, doable plan, that's the people, the process, also why your organization, But oh yeah, I should say that if anyone wants, what's missing from there? Some people say probability of success, you know, this, and what's the chance of it working? No, it's not there. If the size of the prize is there and it's massive, and it's novel, and the people, they want it, you know, and it fits your organization, why should you be doing it? Probability of success, if I have to do calculations and do spreadsheets and analysis, I don't do any of that and never have, but then you shouldn't be supporting it. You know, it's going to be so big, so it either works or doesn't. And actually, it's very easy to pick the winners. I believe it had a 100% success ratio. I really think, you know, I have. It's easy, it's black or white, is it that big? And, you know, it's actually easy picking them. Different ideas, different space, home innovation, go to a different space, different people, create people-centric social processes, not spreadsheet. Shortest route to failure. If it's going to fail, what is it? Put the effort and the resources on that. You know, so if it's going to fail, then you want to kill it and kill it quickly. And the last point is, learn by doing, just do it, quick, small steps. And the last one's very important. Only 10% succeeded. Actually, it was only much less if it's from outside. But if 10% succeeded, but 90% of the budget went on those 10. It's not like you waste the other 5, because you killed those quickly. These are just some of the examples I had in my sort of 6.5 years with Shell GameChanger. It's phenomenal. This is a fraction. Kite Power Solutions, actually I keep mentioning John, but I met him at a Bionis Global in Zeist, in Holland, at a conference with a patent to his name, flying 2 kites. They need a fraction of the energy, it's 5% of the materials in it, all the mechanics is on the ground level, a kite flies just like an aeroplane wing, 100 miles an hour, when it's extended it comes straight back and another kite flies. And it can generate power in 0.5 meter a second instead of 5 meters a second. It can go offshore because it can bob up and down. From that idea, funding it, now it's just raised £7 million there from different resources, got a contract in Scotland to go offshore. It's a massive, massive success. Yes, that was a very difficult one to put off in Shell and make it happen. I absolutely killed myself. But it's there. I handed it over with 2 kites flying at the back of a truck, movable anywhere. There could be a hurricane, wipes everything out. You could drop it by helicopter and you're immediately generating power. So simple, minimum energy. So, you know, this is a sort of value, not the same old windmills that even Rembrandt painted. And we look, all the ones now are less efficient than the old ones. More than 1.2 megawatts is less efficient. So people think the bigger it is, the more efficient. No, it's not. So this one, just father and son, what they delivered was absolutely incredible. Just there, and the drilling techniques. This is going to Bulgaria, Sofia, drilling at 30 times faster than anything else, hard rock. That's to open up geothermal, I'll touch on that. It uses the impurities of the rock to implode and come out. It's not drilling. 50,000 degrees centigrade hot plasma. But that to me is an enabler for geothermal energy. This last one, quickly, found a guy in his garage, one man. Not only is it electricity, PV, hot water, but even in the middle of the night at minus 10 degrees, you're getting 60 watts per meter squared. It's a whole row. The technology's out there. They just need help. And generally, I would spend, each 1 million I'd spend, so I spent about 12 million. Without any of these big ones, I could show I delivered 12 billion of value to Shell. And that is little petty game changers. They don't need to be big. Sometimes the small little quick wins can still add huge value. Oh yeah, so I should say, so how much are you spending on disruptive technology? So I left Shell then, because I loved the passion. I'd already been there as an expat. You can normally be there 4 years. I was there 7. And then I wanted to focus on the alternative energies as well. So I thought, well, let's pick the biggest challenges. So food, energy, and housing. So they seem the biggest challenges. I honestly believe, and with help in this room maybe as well, we can solve these. And I know in my lifetime, with my help or whatever, we will solve food, will solve energy, and will solve housing. And it is doable. Oh, that I just mentioned in Bulgaria, basically just so radical. If you can get geothermal anywhere, I mean, you've really made anywhere, CO2 neutral, 24 hours a day, not just when the sun shines, and if there's volcanic activity, you'll still get it. But housing, all mass manufactured, modular, over car parks, no groundworks. This one, for example, it's all suspended in tension, minimum materials, flat pack, comes flat pack, all opens out. Very radical, low footprint, you can remove them and you grow crops there immediately afterwards. And the final one, it's just 3 slides, 2 on this, and this is what we're now working with Rothamsted to do. We've got a great consortium of people. It's the aponics that John did touch on the first day. It's using a fog, but it's looking at the whole system. It's not just the aponic bit. It's a really low-cost, very plastic. We think it could be maybe £700. It's all in suspension. It's suspended. You even have them really close. It actually folds there, so you're not wasting space with aisles. When you need access, you can go through. It just forms apart. It's all off the ground, so you can grow crops in the middle of, well, we've even got self-harvesting in the middle of monsoon. But basically, you've got your crops growing there, and inside is your fog, whether it's wheat, rice, potatoes, grapevines. But it's a very low-cost system. It can be put on hills, on slopes, rocky. Obviously, you don't need soil. So really, it can go anywhere. But that's basically the system. Very quickly then, you can see, and these are so conservative, if you use airponics, and thanks as well, we have the other airponics system that I met, but I've heard, and we had dinner together, the results are tremendous, and what you're doing around the world is just superb. But I'm sure you'll verify this, you generally get at least 5 times. Some potatoes, you get at least 12 times the amount of productivity. Without a doubt, that's absolutely there, it's absolutely standard, and that's using the old technology. You get better, much more productive yields at each yields, but you're getting significantly more yields per year. So that we know, so let's just take 5 times the productivity. The A-frame structure, for example, that's doubling the earth, doubling the growing area. It's not flat, so that immediately is 2-fold, which gives 10. You could be putting your fungi in there, that's an extra 10%. So we're up to 11 times. Electroculture, that we know, and work done at Rothamsted here, between the walls. It was all confidential at the time, but obviously it's out now. If you could give an electrical charge, say negative to the roots, positive to the foliage, you could see you could get 118% extra growth. But now, and it wasn't practical putting plates in the ground, so and at a barben you have to plough, but with airponics you can just charge the fog when you give it. So it's almost, from work which was done here between the walls, we almost know definitely that again is another 2-fold increase. So that doubles it to 22 times. So, and then you can now, when we get droplets down to half a micron, you can put your RNA in and it can go into the stomata of the leaf and the roots. I believe even Rothamsted have some other chemical they want to put, or other growth enhancements to put into the plant. So just think, what are we talking about here? We know that's almost guaranteed, obviously depending on the crop. So when you add all of these, and we've got another 7 growth enhancement technologies. So once we add all that to the pot, this can, I think, solve world hunger. And there, besides what I've just mentioned, yields, just 85% water saving at least, doesn't matter on the terrain or whatever. It's generally risk-free production. It's in an enclosure. You know you're going to get the production at the end of the day. We believe totally, climate change resistant, whether it's hailstones or storms or whatever. Organic, it's effectively organic, high quality, very low environmental impact, minimum fungicides if any, system isolation on pet snakes, rats, whatever. And the people are picking at a sensible height. As we heard, I think, on the first day, the team, if I just get the glasses, I'm just winding up now, this is the end of the slide. What we had, Donald MacDonald, he said, under a future of agri-food, views from the innovators, if you could eliminate the use of tractors. And what I heard, ploughing 1 single field of clay soil uses 81 gallons of fuel. And I'm told the agri-tech puts 1/3 of the CO2 out there. So, you eliminate tractors, heavy machinery. This is a full self-harvesting effect. And also what we had on the first day, Dr. Cara Griffith made plants more efficient, and Dr. Martin Birkert said new census technology, feedback loops, and basic smart agriculture. So like the kite system, it went from minimum, instead of a lot of mechanical hardware, it all went into the electronics flying the kites, which you could now do. Same with airponics. Now the sensors are cheap, the feedback loops. And I think the system sort of met all the challenges that we had, which were mentioned in the first day. And final slide is my message. pursuing disruptive technologies, and generally I think via open innovation, you have to really do it that way, pays off handsomely. But you do need passion, belief, courage and determination to turn your ideas into reality and hopefully create a better world. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Michael. We've been having fun using an app called Slido, which you can download onto your phone if this is your first day here. We've got a fair number of questions that have already come through. So